a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, a very special one, guys. Monika from Guru Grit comes by. She is an astrologer, a student of the spiritual practices, and a phenomenal storyteller. So she is absolutely incredible. Of course, you guys are going to love her. All of the ways to find her YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff is located down in the show notes. Make sure that you guys check her out. Like I said, you are absolutely going to love her. One of a kind, for sure. Now, down in the show notes as well is going to be our affiliate links. So Food Forest Abundance, of course, Libsyn, if you'd like to start your own podcast, you get 2 months free down there with that link. And then as well as if you were going to buy anything at all on Amazon, please do it through our link. It helps the show for something you were going to do anyway, ideally, right? So also, guys, check out Opus, linked down there as well. If you've had any unexplainable experiences of any kind, Opus can help out, and they are a great ear and a great resource. So that is, of course, linked down there in the show notes also. Plus, if you would like to expand your experience with us here on the show, you can do that in the show note link titled expandingrealitypodcast.com. That's going to be where all of our merchandise links to, all of the socials, lives are replayed there that we do, as well as the Too Cool for YouTube stuff, which there's definitely some of that. And all of that stuff's there, kind of like a one-stop shop. So without any further ado, let's get to this amazing conversation with Monika from Guru Grit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the show, we have Monika from the Guru Grit. Monika, how are you?
Never better. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
Every day above ground is a great day, and thank you so much for asking. This is awesome. I met you on TikTok, which I'm a big fan of. Everybody listening out there is just like rolling their eyes because I keep going, I meet the coolest people on TikTok, and other people's experience of that platform is not the same as mine, and I'm okay with that because what I like to do is take my experience of that platform and let everyone know that there's actually incredibly cool stuff on there if you weed through all the nonsense. So tell me about how you started Guru Grit.
Well, like all good things in life, it wasn't planned. It was during lockdown, during COVID, and I'd been an astrologer for years, but I only had word of mouth clients that were usually, 40s or a little bit older, and I knew them face to face. They just call me, whatever. And I remember eating dinner one day, and I went, I'm so tired of life. I want purpose. And I remember eating my food, which is always where my main skill lies rather than cooking. And I thought, I just want purpose. And I said to myself in this moment of desperation, God, if you tell me what to do, I will do it. I don't care what it is. And out of nowhere, I was posting little TikToks for fun, and people just started messaging me saying, can you do my chart? And I thought, no, I don't really know them, and they don't know me. That's the other thing. I didn't want to come across as fraudulent. So I said, well, I'm going to have to start making astrology content so people believe me. And so you can already tell I care too much what people think. And so that's how it started. And I said, okay, then I can't keep up with this demand. I had to open a little shop. And Guru Grit was born simply out of a need to serve. I have a need to be useful, to be helpful to others. It's my idea of love. So that's just pretty much it. I asked once, I got the answer, and I didn't ignore it. And so here we are now. Questions evolved from just astrology to all spiritual practices. I started answering questions on video on YouTube. I think my first question ever was a woman going through custody battle and all these things, and then articles. And here we are now on Expanding Reality talking. So, yeah.
It's awesome. So you are a student of spirituality and astrologer, but also you're a storyteller. Now, this is in your bio, storyteller, but I would add to it phenomenal storyteller. I think you missed an adjective at the beginning of it because you're hilarious. I hop on your lives. I think I told you I had a bit of a mother-in-law situation going over here for about a week. And one of the highlights of it was me and her sitting down and watching one of your lives. And both of us laughing our asses off because you have just such a great personality and just so many amazing observations. So where do you get that from? Where do you get your humor from?
Well, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you. And I have to say, I censor myself when I work because work is work. I'm there to help others and they're not there to listen to me be myself. But on the live, it's like something switches off and like your primitive brain, I don't know what it is. It's like no one can hold me accountable, so I don't see another face. So I just let it rip. So I have a good time. And I think people need to come to the lives and enjoy themselves because the astrology content can be a bit heavy. So the storyteller really comes from the lives. Basically, people will just come on there, and the people who are newer, which is perfectly acceptable, will say, tell me about, Jupiter and Libra or something. And then the people who come on the reg will just bombard the comment section and say, tell us a story, girl, you're so funny. Did someone like ghost you? You're like, tell us. So I thought, you know what, storyteller first. And ultimately, everything on earth, everything on life, the planets, they tell us a story. Astrology tells you the story of yourself that you've chosen, but you forgot. So if someone can decode it for you, that's great. But if not, you'll still figure it out. Where it comes from, lovingly, my mother said to me one time, I like to talk, I'm a talker. And she went, good Lord, because I take after my dad, in appearance, but in personality, I'm just like my mom. And she went, if that man gave you anything, it's the fact that you talk just like him. And he's a profoundly witty, intelligent man. And anytime we go to dinner or something, everyone just within an hour will just be crowded around him. And he's telling stories. And as a kid, I used to think he's so full of life. And if there's anything I want, it's to always be hungry for life. And I think if you tell stories people can relate to, even if they were sad at the time and you're like, well, all I could do was laugh. It was so ridiculous and it was so humbling. And had I not been there to experience it or see it, nobody would believe me. But I'm telling you, this happened to me. It brings people together because it just makes you realize like this human journey, there's no hierarchy of who's better than someone else. We're all going to suffer. So that's my ethos. Let's start there. We're all here to suffer in equal measure, but in different ways. So usually some people think they're born luckier under the right star and others aren't. Not really. If you accept the fact that life is inherently challenging and you can make fun of yourself, tell that story, beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Now, it is not in my nature to disagree with guests, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I heard a subconscious slip in there that you and I are going to walk through to correct. So you said that people don't want to see who you really are, something to that effect. Now, or don't come to see the real you. I disagree, and I'm going to prove it to you now. When did your numbers really start to increase on TikTok? When you were doing your videos?
When I stopped caring.
Well, when you were doing your lives, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was having too much fun. My readings, my following went up. Readings, I think over the summer, everything just kind of stalls. But I was just having so much fun, and you have nothing else to lose. I love hitting rock bottom. I don't know about you. Failure is fun because you have nowhere to go but up. And I just started to have so much fun, and everything kind of like literally exploded. Like for me, I know it's a smallish page, but for my numbers, I'd never seen anything like that. And I don't do it for the numbers either. I do it to connect with people. And the people who come are so loyal, like you they don't come once, they always come back. And you actually get to build on those relationships. So those people I feel would like to see me. I want to know them. We all know each other. We know about each other's lives somewhat. But what I really meant was, I'm going to go into a bit of like I think there's like a renaissance, a rebirth. I'm very thankful for spirituality and astrology in particular. And and we're entering the age of information. So with that, there's equal amounts of misinformation, I suppose. And it's an unregulated profession. So you have to be very, very outstanding and upstanding to put out the best possible work. So what I meant was people don't want to see me. I meant people don't pay me money for a reading for me to talk about myself for 40 minutes or give them anecdotes about my own life or something. I mean, I do always, if someone looks like they're suffering and I have something just like that in my chart, I'll tell them privately. It's not a problem. But I really mean, there's so many people who will literally just say something completely, to me, it's like wild. They'll say, well, Leo men can't be trusted because a boy in the 6th grade stepped on my new shoes and he was a Leo. It's like, who gave you the right to practice? And like biased people, it's crazy. So that's what I mean is like, They might like to see me, but ultimately they're there for them. It's like a doctor coming into your room when you need healing and seeing that your leg was ran over by a car and saying, that's nothing. I stubbed my toe when I was 12 one time on the coffee table. You're like, really? Not the place, not the time, sir. But thanks anyway, I guess.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I come to your page. I know so many astrologers. I've had quite a few reach out to me. I have had 4 on the show because I'm very picky about you guys because yes, they're dime a dozen for people who call themselves astrologer, but for the real people with the real personalities that integrate it in a way to where it's relatable, it's fun, it's amazingly interesting, and you can get something out of it still. That's why I reached out to you, because of who you are. And every time I see one of your lives, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. It is very rare for me just to stop what I'm doing and catch a live or even a piece of it. With yours, every time I'm just like, oh, sweet, Monika's on. This is going to be dope. And it always is. So yeah, so this is something I wanted to ask you as well in relation to the amount of folks of air quotes astrologers out there. So how do you view astrology?
Astrology to me, first of all, what it is divine celestial bodies that I believe is real because gravity exists beam down to the earth. And we are also living beings. So in some traditions, they believe they're gods. Planets are gods. So they're guiding you. I don't believe they happen to you. Like nothing in astrology happens to you per se. There are things that are fixed. Like I was born with brown hair. I have brown eyes. I'm going to be this tall. My parents are XYZ. Fine. But you always have room to exercise your own willpower. Therefore, it reflects to you. It shows you what you're thinking and where you're at. So let's take the manifestation of a Saturn transit or Saturn placement. Most people fear Saturn. They think he's mean and all these things. He's challenging. You have to work hard. But without him, you can't do anything big and you can't do anything long lasting. He rules authority. You need him to influence people. He actually rules the masses, what we would lovingly call, the 99%, or as I've just come to accept, like people think of us as chumps, but we are strong in numbers. So if Saturn is coming through and you know that, and you're willful, you can get a promotion. You can become self-employed. You can step into your power. You can reap the rewards of all of your efforts. If you feel like he's just going to wipe the floor with you, and like begets like. This is the law of the universe. Karma cannot be changed. So that's what you get. And Saturn actually rules karma. It's a great example for me. But that's astrology. So it's guidance. It's like a blueprint. It was given to us by a divine source to help us. But it's a tool, and a tool is useless if you don't use it. And a tool can be misused. I can take a hammer and make my room beautiful and hang up my pictures and my accolades, or I can club myself, which is not so great, or chase around an innocent animal. That's also horrible. So it's really up to you. If you use it to say, oh, I'm an Aries, I can't marry a Sagittarius because they're mean or something. It's like, why are you cutting the possibility for love out of your life? But if you say, hey, this shows me I'm most compatible with these types of people, but ultimately I'm going to love who I love, then great. It opens your world up, And so for me personally, astrology is a tool for empowerment. I think if you're wise or if you're willing, and this makes me laugh because most people that come to an astrologer don't come when they're in a great period in their life. They really need something, and you give it to them. And it's a tool. So you can use it to lift yourself up. So if you're a very practical person, I equate like astrology is my life. It's my lifestyle. There's days to pray, days to eat certain foods, things that you do, things that you say. And ultimately you live, the only thing more special to me than living on planet Earth, living on the planet is living with the planet, living with, collaboration and community and compassion for other human beings, animals, plants, the atmosphere, having like sentience beyond just stuffing your favorite orifice, your mouth and like your pie hole, and then going to sleep and waking up and just doing what you're told or being angsty, just live with what's around you. And astrology helps a lot in that. Definitely very useful tool. And I always equate it to how the law functions. So I always give this example. For something to have value and to be true, it must be workable. It must be applicable and practical. If you went to court and you sat in a jury and the prison system didn't exist and there was no punitive measure and somebody was in there for causing harm to another and the judge said, well, The jury found you guilty. You are guilty. And the criminal stands up and goes, okay, well, I'm off to lunch, and just skips out of the courtroom. You think, what was that all about? You didn't apply something. You didn't help your client. You just told them you have a blah, blah in cancer. You cry a lot and you like food. Here's a hug. That doesn't help them. Look at the timing. Look at their potential. So astrology, you can read about it all you want, but until you really start to figure out the nuances, how people can take advice, take some remedies, take action. It has, in my personal opinion, it has nothing more than entertainment value, which is valuable. You know, you could be entertained. But if you're looking to change your life, it has to be workable. You must be able to apply a set of rules or something, or say, if you say to me, I'm not interested in remedies, but I want more money, get to it. I would say, all right, I'll find a window of time where you should put your money into, and where and when, you know, but if you're willing to like work with it, but you have to be willing to work as well, because the planets are always working with us. And so is nature, you know, so is the sun, but we have to accept that it's a relationship and work with it again, reciprocate.
Could not agree more. It's a fascinating way to put it. You know, and as you were describing that you don't have to go with your astrology reading, you have the choice to do all of that. Just something that popped into my mind would be like, yeah, you're born right-handed, but you choose to write with your left hand. So it's very, very difficult for you. So you tend to go, an analogy that just popped into mind was just that you go against your intrinsic nature, battling something rather than going with the flow of it, like pointing your feet downriver instead of swimming up the current, right?
Yes, I see you have a guitar there. And I always thought guitar was a fascinating example, because strumming logically is much easier than anything your left hand would do if you're right-handed, right?
Yes.
But because that's the way you're taught to play it, you just accept it. And it's like, yeah. And I remember my friend in guitar class, our guitar teacher was left-handed and she was left-handed. She begged him for a left-handed guitar. And he said, if you just learn it this way, it will make your life easier. And within like a month, she was schooling everybody. It's because if you're taught limitation, you will accept your limits. If you're not, then you won't. So when you come to me, I can say, like, you know, this morning I said to this lady, you know, I don't mean to sound cold or something, but you are the way you are. You're very powerful and you're very apt financially. You're able to survive in the world, not because you're gifted, but because your early life was so hard and so horrible. And she said, yes. But I said, but isn't that a blessing? Because once you're taught something, no one can take that from you, right? So if I teach you through your chart that you can't have XYZ, I've done you a horrible disservice. If I teach you that anything is, I open every reading. If I remember, sometimes I get so hyped, I forget to say my opening line, which is a quote by the famous prophet Edgar Cayce. He said, astrology is real, astrology is true, the planets do grab hold of us, but nothing is more powerful than the will of man. So if you exercise 10% of your will, you can change 100% of your life. But the most astrology will ever do for you is like between 50 and 70%. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the business of being mediocre. And I don't think anybody should be. We're all so unique. And the more you look at charts, the more you see these like nuances. And I've never had anyone come to me and say, I want to be aggressively average. Can you help me not shine? That's never happened. Everybody wants the best from their life. So you have to help them just cross that threshold a little. You're just guiding them. I can't do it for you, you know, but I can point you in the direction, but you have to walk that path.
Aggressively average. That's one of the best two words together, because that's what it feels like. People battle so hard and they're so aggressive to fight their greatness. That's amazing.
Like, you will not strip me of my mediocrity. I'm like, oh, like mediocrity. We should start spelling it like that, you know? And I thought, yeah, why are you so afraid to be who you are? You know, and they'll say, there's only one Lady Gaga and Elton John. I'm like, no one wants to be Elton John and Lady Gaga apart from Elton John and Lady Gaga. Your job is to be you, you know? So the more that you were talking about flow, if you're in flow with your life, things just open up beautifully. And there was a song from like I think the turn of the century, this spiritual teacher, Florence Scovel Shinn, the author of the song. So she's a spiritual teacher, but she knew this man. She quoted him in her book. He said he wrote a song called I'm Tickled to Death That I'm Me. Everybody should be tickled to death that they are who they are. You know, it's just the most wonderful thing.
I agree with that. There's a great saying by a good friend of mine, Heather Thomas, who came on the show a while back, and she was talking about that, you know, if like time doesn't exist and we're all unity consciousness and everything has already happened and all of that good stuff, then following that model, the reason that you're conscious in the state that you are in right now, which is who you are right now, is because this is your favorite lifetime. And that just struck me so hard because it's okay, no matter what goes on in this life, no matter what you face, no matter what your challenges are, you are an infinite being of light, an infinite possibility. You could be any other infinite version of yourself right now, but your consciousness and you are tuned to this experience that you're having. Therefore, if it's like that Jay-Z thing, you could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here with me. And that's how it feels, and I just take that as something that is so comforting in like the most challenging times where you just say, you know what, out of all the other lifetimes, the grass is not greener. You've done them all. You've lived them all. In some sense, you're living them all right now, but your consciousness is focused in this one. And that means you've done all of them. It's your favorite movie. You put this one into play whenever it's your go-to, right?
Yeah, it has something you still want. So even if you're living at home with your parents and you make $8 an hour and nobody will call you back and you don't have a car and your skateboard is just missing a wheel or something, there's still something in that reality that intrigues you. And if you think, but nothing's going right, then my default setting is to think, well, then don't you see, you're a problem solver. You will take pleasure figuring that out. But if you watch other people and how life works out for them, you will never like your own life. That's just a matter of fact. But you're right. It's like your favorite movie. You want to be there.
Yeah, that's how. That's when she put it that way. It changed my perception about everything. And there are little nuggets of gold like that. And you've given me a couple of those actually. Aggressively average. I will never forget that. That's really deep, and I appreciate that one. So thank you. So I'd like to talk, if you don't mind, one of the topics that you covered on a YouTube video that I saw was sex and spirituality. So also to that was remote seduction. So one of the interesting things is right when I heard remote seduction, I again just got the image of Lloyd Christmas in Dumb and Dumber. Remember when he's at the bar and he's like, I'm just going to go to the bar and put out the vibe, and he like sicks his ass out. So is that what remote seduction is basically, or what is your definition of that?
Okay, so Sex and the Spiritual Path was a book by Dr. Herbert Puryear, or is a book rather. And he was a great, very, very well-versed man in the Edgar Cayce readings. And so it's more to do with the use of one's creative energy, our sexual energy, our creative life force. So creative forces are synonymous with sex because sex makes life. But it can be used for anything. So when he says the misuse of sexual energy, it can mean promiscuity, or, sex that isn't healthy, sex that's aggressive, that's vengeful, sex that's procured out of neediness or loneliness. But it's not limited to sex. It's negative thoughts. It's thoughts that work against yourself, self-deprecating humor and things like that. And emotion that's spent. You hemorrhage energy. So in essence, remote seduction is channeling your energy and not hemorrhaging it. I use the word hemorrhage because let's say that somebody is lovesick. They think about the person they want constantly. They are outsourcing their power. And this is why when you stop caring and you bring it back in, that person now has you on their mind because you've bombarded an auric field with you. And when you pull back, they're able to finally see it like clouds parting on a rainy day. So with remote seduction, you channel your energy with distinction. You're precise and you know what you want. You're determined. And what you will do then is, firstly, I have to say, whether it's Edgar Cayce, but Neville Goddard and Dr. Joseph Murphy do the best job of this. I have some videos on the power of the subconscious mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, where he reiterates there is only one mind. There is only one God mind. There's only one source of life. And I love theology. So I always say, I make fun of people who maybe their sects or something like that are really based upon, instead of living a good life and being pious, piety is measured through the fighting off of the enemy or the devil. And I think they're like, it's the opposite of God. And I'm like, you must have misused your morning supplements because God has no opposite. God made that too. Everything is underneath God. So basically when there's only one source of life. So it means there's only one source of consciousness, and it all like tentacles, it just spreads out like the roots of a tree. So if you want someone to notice you, you just have to send the signal to the other nerve ending. You don't have to stand outside of their house with a stereo, though I have no objection. I think it's cute, but that's all you do. So you discipline the mind. So the first thing is to obviously believe it. And then in remote seduction, what you will do is enter into a calm, quiet state. So as your friend was saying earlier, Heather Thomas, you said, you choose the reality, you choose the timeline. To choose and to experience, you must be in a state of relaxation. This is why people who want money, want lottery, want, they just get more of wanting. They're not relaxed. The wanting is done. You never have to pray for money if you grew up poor. You just know you want it. It sucks not to have new things or have your birthday celebrated. So you enter into a relaxed state. And this is the first thing I will say. And I'm currently going through the teachings of Jose Silva, who created the Silva method that's still in circulation today. The work is carried on by his widow and his children, his daughters. And these are master remote workers. They are incredible. I had a Reiki healer for a few years who was certified by them. I met her once, and every reading she did for me after that was remote. Literally, I was on another continent, or I was on the other side of the city, other side of the country, and they can go into your body and feel what's wrong with you and tell you things. But they can only do it because they've trained themselves to relax. Every human being can do this. Animals are especially adept. They're energy balancers. And I always say, I use the quote by Eckhart Tolle, who said, I've lived with several Zen masters and all of them have been cats. So I call my cat Zen Master Flex because he's so mean. It teaches me independence and autonomy. It teaches me, to be left alone and to leave him alone. And we have a really good relationship. So you have to relax. Cats sleep for a reason. They're incredibly powerful. Relax. When you're in your relaxed state, I will give the advice, know what you want before you enter it. Because once you start daydreaming, your thoughts can just take off for an hour. Say you wanted to get a phone call from a place you applied for a job, okay? Before you enter the state, maybe take a piece of paper and just say, they will call me by Thursday and offer me $5,000 more than what I wanted, or call me for an interview, whatever the case may be. When you're in that state, this is the difference between visualization and imagination. And I suppose it doesn't make a difference, because if you feel like a winner, you're going to win. But to visualize is in essence to have recall of a place that you've been to, and you can flesh it out with details. But your imagination isn't limited. See, if I've never been to Mongolia, I have an imagination. I can pretend I know what it's like, and it will take me there. Now imagine that thing is happening. So in remote seduction, that's all you do. You relax and you start to call out, in essence. You create a scene in your mind that person is interested in you, and they're going to give to you what you want. Now, I left this out of the YouTube video because I was a little bit afraid that people would get ahead. But if you're actually trying to seduce a person, a job, a financial circumstance, the best thing you can do, and I promise it's not unethical because energy is always going to find one another, is to imagine that they are sort of at your mercy. Now, they're not crying and they're not in pain, but you can imagine that you're stunning them with so much pleasure and romance that they are just walking around in an orgasmic force field, okay? Or the bank wants to do business with you. That partner wants business with you. You're what they want. You're so magnetic that they cannot release themselves from your grip. You've spellbound them effectively. So you get into that state, you imagine that over and over. The longer you can keep it, the better. Okay, just the same 4 or 5 seconds. And then you come out of relaxation. So this is best done just before you fall asleep, because naturally you'll be very relaxed when you're sleeping. And then when you wake up, you forget all about it. You don't have to do a thing. It's effectively done. Once it's reached, God mind, it's already finished. You just have to let it in. And the only thing you do to let it in is relax. So it's 3 steps. Relax, think of what you want, and relax again. And that's all you do to remote seduce someone. Now, if you're a little bit eccentric or something, you can get really creative if you're trying to seduce a lover, even if you've not met them before. It doesn't matter. You can just let your mind run wild and think of all the ways that they would adore you or something. But you will get what you want no matter what.
So interesting. What is the name of your cat again?
His name is Love Tolstoy. The love means lion in Russian, but we call him Malinki because it means little one.
Was it Grandmaster Lewinsky, was it?
Grandmaster Flex.
Okay,
Grandmaster.
I was thinking, your next one, Tupac Shakur, maybe another one for you there.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That one's on the house. You can have it. So I am curious because we talk a lot about energies here. So how do energies complement one another? Seems to be this dualistic universe here, this reality in which they're opposing energies. So how do they complement? How do they interact?
In general, you mean in with with relationships and people, or just everything? And everything is the same, really. With you attract what you are. You attract what you are. You can really want, and you see this a lot in romance, especially when I do romance readings or something. People really want love, and they have a lot of love to give, but they attract people who abuse their good nature, or they don't want anything to do with them. And they say, I don't understand. We both live in the same city. We went to the same school. We're interested in golf. Why don't you want me? And it's like, you're not attracting a lover because you're thinking of love. You're attracting loneliness. And like Neville Goddard says, the worst thing you can do is look for a partner, because he says, those who go seeking for love only make manifest their own lovelessness. So all energies, also another thing, are really, really complex and like multidimensional. Okay. So you're married, you know your wife very well. She knows you very well. You can be so similar 80% of the time, but you will never find someone who's 100% like you, but you can appreciate the other 20%. And that way you just maximize the joy factor of being near each other. So I think when I think about energies and how they flow, how they work, they're always going to what's most akin to them. And this is a very good example is bullies. And a victim will say, I didn't want that to happen to me. Right. But you have no power. And every bully has been hurt. Hurt people. Okay. Like we know. So you match up with them. You know, a person who's paranoid about someone misusing their financial situation is going to, if they don't attract someone who does that, will abuse their own financial situation. You know, so it's just the way that it is. And it's almost like there's no escape. But if you become aware and conscious of why you want the things you want, why you feel the way you feel, then you will free yourself, and then better things will come to you.
I love this. And the example you used about that victims and bullies need each other because it's complementary energies, you're absolutely right. A bully needs to victimize someone, and someone needs to feel victimized. And so, yes, it's a perfect structure that's here, that's hand in hand. And then when you just choose not to experience that, you don't. Now, something interesting to what you said is it seems like that opposite is here. It's again in having to do with this dualistic universe. So whenever one, let's say, starts to manifest or starts to raise their vibration, this is how you see things pop up in your life that don't resonate with you anymore. So if like attracts like, based on the energetic model that we've been talking about, and I 100% agree with you, what is the deal with acceleration in vibration and not being stuck attracting energies that no longer match to you or that oppose your upward direction? Does that make sense?
Yes. So a teacher that I really love is Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
Oh, yeah.
And he has this thing he calls, it's the echo. So my friend love her. She started to give meditation a chance. And everything, like all hell breaks loose, you know? And she said, but how can that happen? It's supposed to be good. And the teacher said, look, I have a glass of water. If the bottom is filled with dirt and you start pouring water on the top, it's going to cause it to come to the surface. It's like you're cleaning out, you're purging. So that is one phenomenon that I've seen happen to people, that when they actually relax, because their vibration was so resistant and their thoughts were in such it's like they say, the eyes can't see when the mind is blind, but they don't get it. Like they were in such a rigid mentality that they're like, okay, I'm doing this to make me feel better. And I said, yes, it's like you're finishing elementary school, but you're not going to start your PhD program. You have to go to middle school. You have to go to high school. You know, they expect like some quantum leap. That can cause some residual things, but that's the key. It's residual. Everything is only for a while. Okay. It's not forever. The other thing, the echo that Bashar was talking about, is that it's a residual thing. So what happens is when you level up energetically, things that used to bother you, every thought that's ever been thought exists. So it's still there. And even though, say this is the problem, if you've raised up here, well, you're not way above the problem. It will still kind of like meh in your ear, you know? But here's the real test. If it doesn't bother you, it will never bother you again. Because it's not that it goes away, it's that you just can't perceive it. It just doesn't bug you. You can have a neighbor who leaves snarky notes on your car. And if you just don't care about it, and they're all talk and they're so annoying, or maybe you've called the cops and they've said this is just a person who's a bit of like a curmudgeon or something, then you just don't care. And then those notes stop coming. And if they don't stop coming, you don't care. So what difference does it make? So that's the echo. The problem persists so long as you perceive it and emotionally react to it. You have control over your emotions. So if something happens and you don't feel despair, it just will not happen again. Or if it happens, it'll bring you joy, you know? I mean, like a really good example, I'm going to take a very sacred topic, which isn't something to be discussed lightly, but it's true. You will see in your life equal reactions to the blessing of a child. Pregnancy caused people to feel elation. And even if you're married and you have money and you're happy and you have 2-3 kids, when that 4th pregnancy test comes along, the wife and the husband are like, you know, it's like, we'll have it, but we don't really want to have, you know, it really depends how you look at it. And I'm not judging, but I'm saying that's the echo. That's the echo. So if you have control over your feelings, then that experience with that child will be marvelous. And if you don't, you're marinating them in a sense of unwantedness, but you marinate yourself. Everything is like in a cocoon. All your desires are like in gestation. So if you said, you know, how can these things be happening if your vibration has raised? It has raised. And precisely because it's raised, you now are in a much more advantageous place in your life where you don't need to react to those things like you used to. And if you take stock of that and you say, oh yeah, you know, that a year ago, that would make me cry. Now I think it's silly and it's kind of amusing, or it's just whatever. You just ignore the text or whatever the case may be. Then you continue to go to level up, right? So that's it.
Yeah, it's disattachment from any emotion that attempts to get your energy, to suck your loosh, as we say. You know, your energy here is all you got, right? Your attention is your currency. Now,
yes.
Something that's also very, very interesting to me is like the nature of people's experiences when it comes to the resistance, which is what you were just talking about. Stephen Pressfield wrote a great book about it, The War of Art, and it is one of those books that really does mimic this echo concept. Now, something silly that came up to exactly what you were talking about an echo like this and exactly having to do with pregnancy is the people who get a vasectomy. I've heard of men doing this. They get a vasectomy and they're like so excited. They're like, yes, we're done. We're not having any more kids. There's a certain amount of time within there to where you need to expel a certain number of times before you can consider yourself not a fertile turtle, if that makes sense. Now, some people will ignore that time, or they'll get very excited, or they think that they've put in the work. They'll go put in work and then actually get their wife pregnant again, even though they've already gone through the procedure and gotten the vasectomy. There's an echo of something you still need to clear in there. Mm-hmm. This is what it seems like. And again, it's this as above, so below thing. So there are examples of these concepts that we talk about in actual life. And this is just another one of them. Mm-hmm. So what is a way that someone can help recognize these echoes as they pop, as they ascend in their vibration, in your experience or in your opinion?
By the way that they feel. So if you're having a really good day, if you're having a really good day and you're looking for love and you're excited, spring is here, you've got spring fever. And then your ex texts you, or you see them in a parking lot and you want to like run into them with your vehicle, or so, you know, you're like, that doesn't feel good to you. And the first, default setting that you would have is you would think, but I was feeling so good. And I was listening to, doo-wop tunes, I was listening to the Four Tops. I was feeling in the mood for love. Why did I see the most unlovable person, in my opinion? It's because that's the most recent point of reference you have. And you take that personally. And so now you're not going to go talk to them. So you're going to take it personally with the universe, God, Jesus, every Dalai Lama, every, but just calm down. It doesn't feel good to you. It's not. And this is the thing we have, I think, as people. We have a tendency to think of existence as our parent. We have this very unhealthy tendency to externalize our power. Why do I have to think of that? The government tells me what to do. The government will do it. The government, okay? And, govern. So planets govern, God governs, your boss governs, your parents. So you're going to just feel like victimized, but it's not there to punish you. It's there to tell you, you know what? Don't take it personally. And if you're like, it's just, even though we say there's no such thing as a coincidence, if it makes you feel better to think of it as a freak occurrence, then do that. Say, I just saw the person I can't stand the most in the time when I wanted something so good. I'm not letting you ruin my mood. And that's it. You just have that discourse with yourself, because truthfully, the greatest love affair you're going to have in your life is you and you, and you take you with you wherever you go. And even if like Elon succeeds in colonizing Mars, well, he's taking himself up there. So you can't escape yourself. You must make peace with your heart. And once, and like what you were mentioning earlier, like the backlog. So there's a Buddhist thing about cleaning out the back of the heart. There's stuff in there from when you were 6 years old, you don't remember. There's a friend, I was talking to a friend last night and I said, this person said they would do this and they didn't. And I meditated. I asked why that really hurt my feelings. Cause they have their own thing going on. They don't really know. I don't know your life, whatever. And I said, it reminded me of when I was 17 and my boyfriend said he would do this. And instead he didn't. And and I said, that was so long ago, but it doesn't matter. Your body does remember. So I suppose it's like, you will know it by the way that it feels. And it's really ultimately about your relationship to your life. Because I think the older you get, you've collected so much experience that you think that your neighbor's yippy dog is driving you crazy. But really, maybe as a child, you weren't given enough time for yourself, or your privacy was like infringed upon. And so you lack a sense of empowerment and autonomy, and to tell someone, oh, it's not the dog's just letting you know that you don't value your own space or you don't value your own boundaries, but you're taking it out on the dog. And they're going to think that now you're horrible and it feels even worse. But really just talk to yourself, talk to your emotions, find out why.
It's so interesting. And you're absolutely right. I agree with everything that you're talking about. So let's get into the occult. I know that you kind of have a passion for that. So what got you into the occult to begin with?
Okay, so I suppose a bit backwards, but when I was a teenager, so I started with astrology and then I got into religion. I just love the idea of, I've always had the feeling that I was going to live to serve. I always had the feeling that my path in life was a cause. It's something to give of myself. So everyone has a thing. It's kids or marriages or money or whatever. So mine is like the self. I love life. I want to know everything and what made it. And so I got into religion first, and it was just sort of, it sounds so mean, but like I couldn't bring myself to believe so much of it. And not in a condescending way, like people say really condescending stuff about major religions. And I think it's almost like art. And truthfully, if you want to be good at anything in life, no one's going to spoon feed you anything. You can have the best coach as a gymnast, but he's not competing on the day of the Olympics. You are. You have to figure it out what to do. There was a Carrie, what's her name? The one in the 90s who won the gold for the States on like a broken ankle or something. So you've got to do the work. She's famous, she's a tiny thing. Anyway, and I thought you cannot be spoon fed. And I always felt something was missing in that. And what was missing was that it was allegorical. It wasn't spoon feeding you. You have to figure it out. So once you start I'm an obsessive personality anyway. There's no reason to stop. So I never stopped. So I started with religion and I sort of went down into the darkness. And I just realized really it just means hidden knowledge. And everything in the world, I suppose astrology really helps with that, is a symbol or a sound. That's it. It's a vibration and it's something that even the alphabet, you pair symbols together and make sense of things. It's so silly when you think about it. And it's so primitive to communicate in such a manner when you have energy at your disposal. But that's how it began. And then when I was like 13, someone told me about David Icke and I was like, cool, and it's just like, once you begin, you can't go back from what you now know. You cannot shrink to your previous state of knowledge. And it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper practices. Start with meditation. I adore, giants like Abraham Hicks. I'm so grateful to be alive. You're talking about timelines. I could cry of happiness thinking that I'm alive at the same time as some of these people like Daryl Anka, and then we have recordings from some of my favorite teachers who are theologians like Reverend Icke. I love him. I love him so much. Neville Goddard was a very, well-read man. And I mentioned Joseph Murphy and women, I mentioned Florence Scovel Shinn. There's even like women who are like Barbara DeAngelis, who does work on relationships, and who did she marry? She was married to the man who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. She was married like 4 times or something. I think she's on her 5th marriage. So I think there's so many amazing people doing amazing things in our day and age. Like I'm really into Paul McKenna and Dr. Brian Weiss for hypnosis. And when you start to understand how much energy is at your disposal, the mysteries of the world are not a mystery anymore, and nothing ever was. And the biggest lie people like you and I have been told as children is that magic isn't real. It's really all there is. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I love this, and I love that is an element in which you view the world through. So what's your favorite David Icke, idea?
ideology is when he says, humanity, get off your knees.
Yes.
Get off your knees. Why are you so keen to allow something that you don't know anything about to dictate something to you? And he's a man of great intent. Of course, I've looked at his birth chart. I have a YouTube video on conspiracy theorists. I did all men. I think I want to do all women next. But the idea that I believe in God, like I pray, I'm a praying woman. And I think it loves you like your parents love you. It's not here to dictate to you how to live like a chump. And I see, like, sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, look at all the rules I follow. And I'm not any closer to where I want to be. Why don't I just get a foam finger with like #1 chump, and I get to like wave it in the mirror and stamp it on my forehead and sit on the chump bench with the other chumps, you know? And it's like, what? That's not why you made me. This is silly. And no parent would treat their child like that. Like, you wouldn't leash your kid and keep them there. You want them to be in the world, to guide them. Parents, all you can do is guide your child. You hope to God they listen to some values or some legacy that you have to bestow upon them, a nugget of wisdom, and they go forth and they live their life. And hopefully they come back or they make you proud or some such thing. It's absolutely no different. Just as when I was a child, I remember I almost got in really big trouble, but I said, they said, you have to be God-fearing. And I said, okay, but does my dad love me? They were like, yes. Does my mom love me? He said, yes. I said, well, my parents love me and they've never hurt me. They've never put a hand on me, nothing, And I said, so if I made a mistake, they wouldn't be angry. And I am them, right? I have their genes. So spiritually, we have our maker's DNA. Okay. So why would the thing that make you to cause suffering and harm and punish you? It's completely illogical. It made you to enjoy you because it loves you. And now you've been tasked with, you said, raising your vibration. I would say, yeah, to raise yourself to the level of our creators, to be in its company, to live where the high vibration is, to attract and every time you think that, and like David Icke does really speak about that. He's a person who likes empowerment. People who come to see him are curious and they're empowered, or they want to be free. Like, we're freedom seeking missiles, whether you know it or not. Like, I always say no one likes being told what to do. And then the freaky people who have kinks will be like, actually, I'm like, not the time, not the place. This is a children's app, like we're talking about like ultimately in life, you don't want your landlord raising your rent without telling you. You don't want someone just bullying you. You don't want that. You want to have dominion over your existence. And that's my favorite ideology of his. It's like, hey, he wants to do it in this way, but I do it on a micro level. I do it one chart at a time, one person at a time, 15 minutes at a time, 1 hour at a time. And I always say, please take the best and leave the rest. Just take the best and leave the rest. If you can do 1 remedy instead of 3 this month, that's better than nothing. You've improved your life, right? So freedom for me is like everything. It's the reason why I'm into these things. And I never, like I said earlier, not only did I not believe ideologies, I didn't believe the world. Like, I didn't like Disney as a child. I thought it was sick. I'm like, what sick bastard shoots a doe in front of its baby?
Yes, I had to be pulled out of movies as a kid for crying, screaming, crying. And so my mom just stopped taking me to those movies, like Land Before Time, Benji, all that stuff. I can't do it. And so I was right there with you. I called bullshit on Disney as a child. So asking the kind of intuitive questions that you were asking, hang on, well, God wouldn't do this because we're part of God and my parents wouldn't. It's that kind of stuff that the church is just like, yeah, we're not going to mess with you. We'll just go talk to, the 90% of people who don't ask questions like that. We can get to them pretty early. But I think that amount of people and that number of indoctrinatable is switching rapidly. I think that more kids are asking those kinds of questions, and which is very interesting because it's like, you and I kind of did this. We transcend the lessons of our parents, and they want the best for us, and I get that. But they were also raised by parents who were in the dark. Our parents were in the dark. And it seems like what we are here to do is illuminate this area at sometimes the cost of our own sanity for a bit of time. But then it seems to reward itself in the fact that exactly to what you said, that now that you have this knowledge, you can't unlearn it. I've used the metaphor of ascending a treehouse with trapdoors. Each time you get to a new level, the trapdoor closes behind you, a new level of awareness, but there's no handle on the inside. You can't go back down. You're just steady as she goes, keep going up.
Yes.
So it's these ideas that weave into the fabric of that we are in this great, switch, this great awakening type of a thing. And so this is what's so exciting to me. It feels like that me and you probably are one of the last generations born with parents born in the dark, like deliberately in the dark. And I think that now the cabal is more ridiculous than ever. The veil is thinner than ever. The stuff is way more obvious than ever. And then there are way more intuitive people coming along at this time. This is that like third wave that Dolores Cannon talks about, What do you think? I mean, that's kind of how I see it, is that now this generation of people having kids and raising kids is going to be the next generation of people that just call bullshit on all the structures.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And astrology definitely shows that, a huge restructuring, but it also gives a warning. The warning is this. So I believe, yes, I'm like you. I think, we do a little better each time, with every baby being born, we're doing a little better each time. And I'm thankful for that. And people who, regardless, age and generation, of course, and waves has a lot to do with that. But regardless of all of that, the people who know better have to be like the guardians of everyone else. You have to help them. God helps us help themselves. I'm not saying you stand around with a giant, billboard that's like, I don't know, meditation saves or something. You just have to, you just have to hope that if you work in, like Disney, people who make cartoons for enlightenment, people who, what's an amazing one is The Last Airbender. Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen it? Mm-hmm. How Aang finds a teacher and he explains the chakra system in 2 minutes or 7 minutes. Okay. So there can be entertainment for children that's actually useful. There can be newer ways of doing things like Montessori schools, homeschooling, interactive schools where you're in nature and all this stuff. Okay. Excuse me. We can do better. And so we can facilitate that. And the veil is thin. But the thing is this, as at the same time, I use astrology for empowerment, but I do not disregard its warnings. And the warning is this, because we're moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius. Okay. Capricorn is very rigid and it has to do with institutions and hierarchies. So it's the dark side of Saturn, which is karma, banks, school. Like when we had originally Pluto and Capricorn, the world saw things like the welfare system, education system come into, the Industrial Revolution occurred. So we're moving into an age of information, as we were saying, but we were talking about residuals and echoes. And so in a recent video I said, be weary of tech overlords, because not everything is here to free you. Everyone's here to make fast money. So not everyone, but you know what I mean? So what's the point of having the idea of liberation if it's not free? It's just rebranded and repackaged to you. So let's take a startup for an example. If you leave, my corporate slave driving role, I'm going to work at a startup. I'm going to do something that matters. And you get there and your boss is equally oppressive and horrible, but they've packaged it as this is the future. This is something new. You get to make your own hours. You get perks. Yeah, you get perks because your hair is falling out and you just finished university because you're so stressed, Sorry.
I heard this about Google and other places from an insider, somebody who worked there. Everybody, they're advertised as perks. Hey, you get to take the bus. Hey, you get to take your dog to work. Hey, we'll provide you meals. But dinner for their free meals isn't until 6 o'clock at night. So you actually stay 2 hours after you're supposed to have left to get your free meal, which is one of the perks. But it's packaged in a way to where, yes, it is like an incentive, but really it's a way for them to keep you there longer. You can bring your dog to work so that you don't have to go home to take care of it. You can have buses so that you don't have car trouble as an excuse to not go. You get late meals so you can just fill in that time with extra work. Yes, I completely...
And bring your children. They have daycare centers.
Exactly.
Why would you raise them at home? This is your home now. It's like when you in those movies when an inmate is incarcerated and he's just got a little blanket and a toothbrush and someone just slams the pling and they just turn around and they've got this blank look on their eyes. It's like, welcome to your first day of work. You're never gonna leave, and you're like, oh, okay. It's like, what's the point of making all this money? You have no time to spend it or enjoy it. But it's literally that's exactly what's happening now. Is that people have come forth and said, I'm not miserable with the state of the world. Okay. We have some wonderful innovations that make life comfortable and convenient. And it is helping a lot of people that need it. But if you take the same blueprint for how to run it, it's a corporation and it's completely insane. And it's not helping anyone at the end of the day. Okay. You're just repurposing it. And it's same, different pile. And I'm like, then what's the point of that? So it does take a few people who want to do something truly out of the box and have, I said, a purpose. Okay. So they know they will suffer for some time financially, but at the end, if they've done something, that helps others, they're willing to do it. So the other thing too is, so you were talking about the veil being thin. And so this is a transitionary period. So that's the warning I wanted to mention. So for example, let's say people are like, working remote is amazing. You're free now. You work from home. You can go anywhere in the world. That's true. And, on TikTok, you see a lot of people having this nomadic lifestyle. Most people don't want that. If you're like 45 with an 8-year-old, you want to get out of the house. So you've repackaged what freedom is and spoon-fed it to them, and they didn't want it. They didn't want it. They don't want their kid at home on a laptop. Like, some people I know with kids, their kids literally can't write. They can't write, and they're in the 3rd grade because they spent 2 years on their computer. They can type. They can play Roblox. They can't write a sentence. They can read it. They can't write it. And so they're like borderline illiterate because they told you, hey, isn't it great? You get to be in your pajamas. Why are you glamorizing being a slob? Like, I'm not judging, but nobody wants the same thing all the time. People who like to socialize don't want to do it all the time. People who are introverts need some reprieve from something sometimes. But you see, it's like you're constantly bombarded with the same, and at this point, like, I'm not even angry or scared. I'm just bored. I'm bored because if you even go through like 5 years of human history, you can predict the next 50 if this is the track that we're on. So we have to like just sort of become a little bit wiser. Like you said, like kids are being born now that are not going to buy it, but they need somebody older who will stand up for them until they're old enough to take care of business and say, I'll look out on this end. And when you turn 18 or 28, or when you come into your power, whatever, I've laid the foundation. I'm going to help you in any way I can. Like, don't worry. Like it's like a soldier on the front lines. You get the brunt of the cannonballs and the bullets and the bayonets. So the back cavalry has a chance, so it's like, we have to help them. Like they're really here to do something spectacular. And we definitely have to try, because if history repeats itself, then human beings really, they have an appetite for the nostalgic and for repetition. And at this point, it's just so destructive and it's so boring, and we can do so much better. Let's do that. Let's level up.
I love boring. I like that that's it, because it's not a fear-based thing. It's not like it's just a mild annoyance due to just because it's unentertaining. Like, that's fun to me, that you take this huge fearful, agenda and you just say, ugh, so boring.
I'm bored. I'm bored stiff. And they're like, look what's happening. It's terrible, but we're going to make it better. I'm like, first of all, you don't know my life. I'm just like, no, you won't. Don't dictate to people what they should be fearful of. Don't dictate to people what they need. Don't dictate. And even, like crypto is a great example. Crypto has come to free us all. And guess who got wind of it? People with money and banks. And now they're buying it up. And now we can't afford it. It's like, it's funny to me. I'm just like, at the end of the day, actually yesterday I was talking to my hairdresser, and she said, your generation has no trust. None. When my children were growing up, and that's another thing I want to say for parents everywhere whose children had to be remote for here, we've had, I think, one of the longest lockdowns in the world. She said, my children would just go out. They'd say, I'm at the neighbors, or I'm with this person down the street. And you would just see them when the streetlights came on, and you could get things done. And your generation can't do that. You have to have them in your orb. Like, you can't trust people anymore. And I thought, yeah, it's true. Like, growing up, my parents, they had hard lives, but they were nowhere near as stressed by the chronic assault of constant tedium. It's like the mundane can just break you, because, your child or your responsibilities are constantly there. When I was growing up, as soon as the sun was up and I had my breakfast, ciao. I might come back for a PB&J. I'll see you for dinner. You had the whole day to yourself as a mom or a dad. You could run errands. If the kid got locked out, they knew how to shimmy a window and bust into. I've done that tons of times, and you could just have kids over. They were somewhere, and we didn't have cell phones back then. And I actually remember being in high school, and cell phones were sort of they were coming out. You were being drip fed, the phenomenon of owning a cell phone. And everyone and all the commercials used to say, stay connected. And it was always a 6-year-old being like, Grampy, Meemaw, calling some old, and they were they can stay in touch. You don't have to wait for the summertime to see them. You don't have to, bother with how hard everything is. Like, it was never hard. What do you mean? And now that we all have cell phones, we've regressed. You don't call your grandparents every week because you're so accessible. It's like counterintuitive. And I thought that too. I thought no one's going to stay in touch, because if they can have access to you all of the time, there's a little remote viewing and remote seduction principle. If you're over accessible to somebody, they will not desire you. It's like asking me to point out what part of the sky I'm looking at. It's like, the sky is a sky. It's everywhere. But if you single out a star or like a cloud that looks like a bunny, I can, distinguish it because it has contrast. So it's like, now we have phones, we have people who are constantly in contact with others, and so much communication, and so much of it, absolute dribble. It's dribble. It's nothing. It's like, no thought, no substance, run a meeting on this, do that. It's like you're in communication with other people, but you don't really know them. And you've become desensitized. At the end of the day, you're so fried. You don't want to be spoken to. You don't want to be touched. You don't even want to be heard. You don't want to be perceived. You just want to disappear into yourself. It's too much. So this is the fear that I have. Well, not really fear, but of being told what to do, being told that it's good for me, which is insane, because there's only I really know what I need. And I mean, if you're a woman and you've gone to the doctor, you really know how much a professional can completely not care or understand what your needs are either. And then socially, like spiritually is obvious, but the social narrative, how we communicate, is so out of touch now. No one wants to spend time together. They're tired all the time. And we're really at a place where people are scared to be close to one another. Okay? It's so messed up. So this has to be left behind. This idea that somebody who, I'm not going to be shady, but like, let's say somebody who works in politics but never had a real job a day in their life, but they won a popularity contest and they mysteriously had the money to run for that, is going to tell you, because you're a silly little dum-dum, like how to sit down and where to sit and how to put a napkin over your lap and eat like a civilized person. Like, who are you to say anything to someone? That has to be left. That has to go. But in all things, okay, spiritually, no fear. There's no fear here. Truly, it's they say false evidence appearing real. It's so true. It's all in your head. You have to think for yourself, speak for yourself. And then you asked about conspiracy. So I'll just end with this. I do have a little video on YouTube I made about a year ago on this. Spiritual, like raising the vibration and being a conspiracy theorist are not always compatible, because so many conspiracies run on fear disguised as freedom. But if you don't feel free, if you feel frightened, then you're not free. And what is true ultimately is a mystery, because what's true for one person isn't true. Even conspiracy theorists don't agree. Experts don't agree. Doctors in the same field don't agree. Lawyers in the same field don't agree. So, and then you don't know how much of it has been planted and just, you can take the information if it interests you. You can listen to it if you're curious. But once your mood starts to tip, you've got to get out of there. You've got to log off and close your laptop. Okay. You've got to keep raising the vibration. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
Could not agree more. And we talk about this a lot. I used to be an avid conspiracy theorist. Paul revering around, you've got to see this video, wake up, they're screwing you over, they're trying to kill us all that good stuff, or successfully doing so. And eventually you get to this point where, exactly like you said, it's a toxic environment for you to exist in. Even though you're out there doing your damnedest with a good heart and good intentions to wake people up, you've still got to basically like stab yourself with a bunch of swords and then walk around and tell people how much it hurts. You don't have to take that on. And so I've gotten way more aligned with Charlie Robinson's vernacular for this, and he calls us a conspiracy analyst. Like, yeah, we'll look at it, but I'm not going to take on the negative energy of it, because that's part of why the conspiracy exists in the first place, is to attract and draw in energy into the system. Now, whether that be the people that believe it and fall for it, we'll just put it that way because that's what's going on, and don't question it. I'll add that to that first part. Or people who do see what's going on, haven't fallen for it, and are scared for the people that have fallen for it, and they want to wake them up. So either way, the system gets energy, right? And so It's when you stop participating then in that. It's when you just ignore the guy screaming, then that's when they stop yelling, because they don't have your attention anymore. The people screaming only continue to scream because they're getting attention. So just turn it off, shut that faucet off of attention. Yes. So I love this. I could just talk to you forever, but we're probably going to wrap it up here in a little bit. I just kind of have a commitment. But I do want to know, you said that you had looked some stuff up earlier on in the show.
Looked some stuff up?
My chart, I think you wanted to check a couple of things on that.
Yes. Okay. I will mention that. And I just want to say something about conspiracies and what they're doing to people.
Yeah.
I just want to wrap this up. But people say you have to understand your power. Okay. So there is no such thing as inorganic matter. There is one source of life, and that includes us. Okay. Physical experience. So there's nothing that can actually hurt you. Whatever's in the air, whatever's in your food, whatever's in your medicine cabinet is made of the same material that is available to the cosmos, which you are made from. So you cannot, like, if you think something will hurt you. But your vibration is much more powerful than that of like a grain of wheat. You know, if you have an allergy or something, you can dominate all things with your will. So speaking of will, you have, sun. I just saw really, really quickly the first thing that caught my eye. I believe you're a Leo ascendant. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So sun. So Leo, the first house is you. The second from the first is the house of resources. Therefore, it's your wallet. It's literally how the person makes money. So if you take the first ruler and put it in the second house, the person is usually apt, like they're adept at making money in their life. And then it gets a little bit better. You have a mutual exchange of rulers. So you have Venus in the sign of Virgo, which rules Libra, which is your third ruler, and Mercury in the sign of Libra. So they've swapped. And it's the second and the third houses, which actually the second house rules the voice box and the throat, and the third is expression. So Mercury obviously is a communicator, and Venus is like a peacekeeper or a mediator of sort. Venus actually rules healers, and she's known as the planet of prophecy. So cool. I'm running a prophecy series on YouTube shortly, covering all my faves like Baba Vanga, Edgar Cayce, and Nostradamus. But Venus is said to consort with demons. So really, speaking for a living is excellent for you. Thinking for a living is excellent for you. And I did a creativity and astrology series on YouTube as well. And so many people who like sing, make movies, whatever, they have these two planets exchanging, and their second and third houses just light up. And so when I just opened it, I literally just took a look at that, wrote it down. I said, that's all I need to say. And by transit, you should, nothing is predetermined, but let's say I'm of the opinion you will start to do quite well within the next 18 months. So I wish you much prosperity and all good things. And please keep speaking. It's going to reach people quite far.
Man, that does me good. That does my heart good. Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, ma'am, we're just going to keep rolling in because I see it and I feel it, and it does.
Yes.
This is when I started to point my feet downriver and just go, okay, I'm done fighting. I'm going to surrender to this. And that's honestly when everything woke up, which is great.
You have a Jupiter-Mars conjunction in the fourth in the sign of Scorpio, which is obviously like occultism. Jupiter is divine knowledge. And the fourth house is a deep contemplative house. It's the house we measure a person's happiness and trustworthiness from. And therefore, it's the house of counselors. So Jupiter in the fourth or Saturn in the fourth, it could be a bit rough, like voice of reason, but you're the voice of truth. Okay. And Mars is willful, and he's very powerful in Scorpio. So you made a very good conspiracy theorist, but and Scorpio is a sign of alchemy. You turned it around. You transmuted, you transformed, you purged, you walked through the fire. And lastly, your Saturn in the third is exalted, and the third rules masses. And Saturn rules masses. The third rules one's efforts. So clearly through your own efforts, I think you're going to have like scope. You're going to really reach people on deep things that are not superficial, that they matter. And they're humorous and they're lovely and they're light. And I just love that for you. And that's great.
Damn. Okay, all the more reason that people should contact you, which will be located down in the show notes. Thank you so much, Monika, for saying that and doing that. That's awesome. Again, just thank you. That's amazing. So, okay, all the ways to find her, guys, will be located down in the show notes. Monika, I can't thank you enough. This has been tremendous. You and I definitely have a lot more to talk about, so we will have you back on. Thank you again. This is amazing.
The pleasure is all mine, and it's been my good pleasure. And thank you so much to all of your wonderful listeners for giving me their time.
Want to send a huge hug and a massive shout out and a thank you and everything to Monika for coming and hanging out with us on the show. Of course, you guys check the show notes for her Guru Grit. Everything is linked down there, and she is phenomenal. You're absolutely going to love her. Definitely catch a couple of her lives on TikTok if you can, because she is just one of the funniest damn people I've ever heard just riff. And she's wonderful. So anyway, all the ways to find her, of course, guys, like I've already said, down in the show notes. So while you're down there as well, check out Food Forest Abundance as far as our affiliate links go. If you would like to start your own podcast, the Libsyn link down there is who I host through, and that link will get you 2 free months with that platform. Also, if you're going to buy any damn thing at all on Amazon, we've got an Amazon affiliate link down there. So all you do is you buy what you were going to buy, run it through that link, boom, you don't pay any more, and it helps the show. And I'm grateful for everybody that's taking advantage of this, by the way. You guys are awesome. Also down there as well, if you would like to expand your experience with us here on the show, do it at expandingrealitypodcast.com. That's going to be links to all the socials, rock fan merchandise, lives are replayed there, a bunch of stuff that we don't put on YouTube because they're being little bitches is up on the website for absolutely free. Make sure that you guys check that thing out. So go out into this beautiful, mysterious place, whatever the hell it is, guys, and y'all pick up a piece of litter. Of course, be nice to everybody that you come across. Smile, hold doors open. It's not rocket surgery, but it makes a massive difference in the collective. Also, go a little bit above and beyond. Buy somebody a coffee or a meal in line around you. It makes a massive ripple effect as well. So also, while you're out there just kicking vibrational ass all the way to the max, you can go ahead and up your game by getting the hell out of the left-hand lane if you've got somebody behind you wanting to pass. That's a great way to do it. Just move over, they'll be right by you, and then you can get right back over there and do whatever the hell you were doing. So, above all and anything else, guys, go out into this beautiful place, whatever the hell it is, and y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.